Those of you who know me well will know that my biggest fixation is about the BRICS, the three BRIC countries, Brazil, Russia, India, and of course China. And I think it's worth taking a moment just to think about why these countries are so important. In today's world, when you want to build a booming economy, I think we know now that building up a mountain of debt, creating a highly leveraged situation, printing money, devaluing your currency is actually not the way to build a long-term booming and thriving economy. I think you need three things: people, and above all, I think you need capital. There was a time when you only needed land and people, before the Industrial Revolution, when one output of agricultural output was generated by one individual. There wasn't a need, effectively, to have capital. It was as simple as one person working the land delivers the GDP output. But with the Industrial Revolution, we now need capital. And if you look at the world in terms of these three things, you see a picture that looks like this. And as you can see, in the middle of those three circles, being the countries with large areas of land, 2 million square kilometres or more, countries with a population of 100 million or more, or countries with a GDP of 600 billion or more. The BRICS sit in the middle of those three circles, as does America, of course. And it's interesting just to reflect on some of the other changes that are taking place in the world today. For example, Indonesia, which previously was a country with population but no capital or land, has now just recently ticked above 600 billion in terms of their GDP, and is now in the overlapping circle between large populations and large amounts of capital. Australia, of course, is a country with a lot of land and a lot of capital, but not a lot of people. It would take a big Australia policy to get us to a population of more than 100 million. So I think in setting the scene, it's important to see China as part of a new emerging world dominated by these four countries: Brazil, Russia, India, and China. And Australia has a role to play, and I hope we can talk about this today, in terms of the growth of these countries and looking to share and export some of our services, our capabilities and our efficiencies to other emerging countries, with these four BRICS in the middle. Now, Goldman Sachs, who recently came up with this BRIC idea, have just recently redone their projections going forward, and there's clearly quite an important need to redo those projections in terms of what's happened in the last 2 or 3 years. And this is the world, or the world in terms of GDP, across about the largest 10 countries in the world as at 2010. But as you go forward and start looking at where things are going to end up in the next 30 or 40 years, somewhere around 2025, there's lots of debates about when that will happen. Some people say it will happen earlier, some say it will happen later. China will overtake America to become the largest economy in the world. By 2040, China will be by a long way the largest economy in the world, and by 2050, it's going to be a very different picture altogether. And it really does put into context, I think, the importance of China from an Australian perspective when you see a picture like this. And this chart and these projections take into account all kinds of slowdowns, all kinds of crises, all kinds of problems and challenges that China and these other countries are facing. But yet the picture at 2050 remains like this. And whilst people are still arguing about how quickly and how fast and so on, most people now accept that this is the sort of position we're going to be looking at by the year 2050. So I think that's one of the reasons that we're here. Now, going back to last year, we'd just recently seen the 12th five-year plan. And I encouraged everybody at the time to read the 12th five-year plan, knowing that nobody in the room would. I can be very confident about that. It's a colossal document. It takes about 5 years to prepare. And this particular five-year plan was one of the most comprehensive ever written. And it really is a turning point in terms of China's development. And last year we actually ran our whole program around three things. The three things that the Chinese had said they wanted to do as part of that five-year plan. And the three things were to match up our thinking in terms of their three priorities, which were going out, going west and going green. And those of you who were here will remember hearing from speakers talking on each of these three topics. So let me just recap where we got to. In terms of going out, it's remarkable to find Australia as the largest single country in terms of outbound investment from China. China has this going out strategy which is designed to remove their dependency on the US dollar, diversify their asset base and start buying real and acquiring real corporate assets around the world. So going out is a big part of that strategy, and the fact that Australia is their #1 country in terms of their going out strategy, a small little country like Australia with only 20 million people, I think gives us a lot of comfort and thinking around how this could develop in the future. And what's more interesting is that the $65 billion or so that has ended up in Australia's resources sector as part of China's outbound or going out strategy is just the beginning. And it's all in resources, pretty much. And what's really interesting is to start thinking about the areas that China is now looking to invest in. Now, like all of you in the room, I'm sure, I regularly meet with Chinese delegations coming through Australia with a shopping list which starts with coal and iron ore and ends with the kind of services and expertise and capability and innovation that's on this list. And that, I think, is actually the exciting part of China's going out strategy, because where else would they invest in these kinds of capabilities than in the country that is their single largest target in terms of outbound investment? And that's part of their going out strategy. And I've no doubt that in the room we have plenty of people that operate in these sorts of sectors. And I think it's in these sectors that we now need to focus our effort in terms of positioning those capabilities for China. I spend a lot of my time doing exactly that.